Most recently, on the 9th of January, 2025, at the national conference held in the capital city of Ouagadougou, President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso made a profound statement. He said, "Soon, the factories will rise." This word of prophecy is now being fulfilled in Burkina Faso. Just last month, we celebrated Burkina Faso's first tomato factory. And now, we are celebrating the rise of another factory, the Burkina Faso gold factory. Not only has Traoré launched the gold factory, the factory is now fully operational. It has already produced Burkina Faso's first, locally made, gold bars. What a remarkable achievement! How many African countries, blessed with gold resources, can truly boast of this? But how did Traoré achieve it? Let's find out. If you have been following Ibrahim Traoré from the very beginning, you would notice one thing. Above everything else, he values the sovereignty and the complete independence of his country. Since he assumed power, he has taken bold actions to place Burkina Faso on the path of independence. He kicked out French troops. He ended military cooperation with its former colonial master, France. He restored military sovereignty to Burkina Faso. But Captain Traoré did not stop there. He has also worked to ensure monetary and economic sovereignty. Here's why. On the 1st of September, 2025, Captain Traoré, president of Burkina Faso, inaugurated the first waste processing plant for mining residues. This marked a major step in managing mining byproducts and in building a value chain that creates opportunities in the extractive industry. The inauguration took place in the Kosoto Industrial Zone, just east of the capital, Ouagadougou. During the ceremony, President Traoré proudly declared, "The machines to process the mines were entirely built in Burkina Faso." He emphasized the nation's ingenuity. In his own words, "I can confirm, without fear of contradiction, that Burkina Faso is the second country in Africa to develop this technology." He praised what he called the Burkina Faso revolution behind this great achievement, and he added, "The opening of this factory is all part of a much bigger plan. This is all part of President Traoré's plan for Burkina Faso to manage its own resources." He even invited other African states to bring their mining waste to Burkina Faso, because now we have the technology to process it. According to Yacouba Marie Emmanuel Tapsoba, Chief Executive Officer of Gold in Hand, the company that runs the plant, local experts were the ones who designed and built the facility. It was created to process residues from the country's gold mines. He explained, "The plant was established so that Burkina Faso can process on-site and have full control of its own waste." Reliable sources confirm. The waste plant will be 50% owned by the state and 50% owned by Gold in Hand and partners in South Africa. Facing the media, the Burkina Faso Minister of Mines expressed his satisfaction, declaring, "Our country has clearly decided to assert itself and to fully assume its sovereignty in every field, especially in mining." He added, "It has become an urgent necessity to find our own ways to recover as much as possible of the metals contained in mining residues." Now, 1 year after its inauguration, the Burkina Faso waste plant has produced the country's very first gold bars. The bars were made by processing mining residues known as fine coal, previously abandoned at the Essakane mine. Fine coal is the leftover material after gold extraction. It still contains a considerable amount of gold. The Burkina Faso plant processed this fine coal to produce 44 gold bars, weighing 93.197 kilograms. These bars were handed to the Ministry of Economy. The Prime Minister of Burkina Faso, Apollinaire Joachim Kielam de Tambela, accepted the gold bars on behalf of interim leader Ibrahim Traoré in the capital, Ouagadougou. Speaking at the event, the Prime Minister stated, "This outcome shows our government's vision of creating wealth through local mining expertise. It ensures what we call endogenous and sustainable socio-economic development." He added, "There are already plans to process over 297 more tons of residue to further increase Burkina Faso's gold reserves." He also made it clear, fine coal from Burkina Faso will no longer be sent abroad. Meanwhile, Yacouba Marie Emmanuel Tapsoba, General Director of Gold in Hand SA, explained that this extraction uses environmentally friendly, cutting-edge technology. He stressed that this first batch reflects the government's commitment to serve its people. What remarkable news! But what is the real implication of the Burkina Faso mining waste facility? Each of the 44 gold bars carries the official seal of Burkina Faso. It is a symbol of economic independence and national pride. The bars are now stored in a secure facility, and with more gold bars to come, Burkina Faso will finally have enough gold to back its economy. By holding gold reserves, Burkina Faso can hedge its economy against external monetary influence. From the CFA franc now, if you recall, there have been talks by the AES countries about creating a new currency to replace the CFA franc, a true colonial relic. Although not much has been revealed about this new currency, we can clearly see that Burkina Faso is preparing for a transition. And how? By steadily accumulating gold bars. Under French influence, Burkina Faso and other countries did not even have their own central banks. France designed it in such a way that they had to depend on the Central Bank of West Africa, which everyone knows is simply an extension of the Bank of France. Let us not forget, Burkina Faso, like all Francophone countries, was forced to keep half of its reserves in French banks. But, as we said earlier, President Traore is determined to liberate his country and his people from France's control over the monetary system. This is why he recently created Burkina Faso's very own Treasury Deposit Bank. Last year, Captain Traore officially inaugurated the Treasury Deposit Bank at its headquarters within the public treasury in Ouagadougou. The establishment of this bank is a bold move. It shows the nation is on a path to reclaiming its monetary sovereignty. With this new treasury bank, Burkina Faso will no longer have to depend on the Central Bank of West African States, another colonial relic, to store its reserves or regulate its financial system. Even more important, Burkina Faso will no longer be forced to deposit 50% of its reserves in a French bank. The Treasury Deposit Bank is also designed to bring accessible banking services to all citizens. Its network will extend through regional, provincial, and departmental treasuries, ensuring that everyone, regardless of location, can access these services. But that is not all. The Treasury Deposit Bank will also serve a wide range of clients: public institutions, state-owned companies, local authorities, international organizations, NGOs, and private businesses. Its primary mission is clear: to manage the banking functions of the public treasury while offering secure, reliable services for the Burkinabe people. The Treasury Deposit Bank will handle account management, resource collection, and transaction processing. In addition, it will introduce digital payment methods and develop innovative banking services to meet the needs of a changing society. The truth is clear. The establishment of this treasury bank empowers Burkina Faso to conduct financial transactions independently. No longer must it depend on the Central Bank of West African States. No longer must it risk interference from France. Depending on that central bank has only benefited Europe. Countries like France, with no gold mines of their own, were able to accumulate huge reserves of gold, taken from Africa. Foreign mining companies extracted vast amounts of gold from Burkina Faso and other African nations at a cheap cost, without giving back, not even fair tax revenue. This is why Captain Traoré has taken bold steps to reclaim control over Burkina Faso's gold. The waste mining facility is one way he has done so. Now that the facility is in full operation, Burkina Faso can store its gold in the Treasury Deposit Bank. This is a remarkable achievement. But the question remains, what other steps has Traoré taken to protect his country's gold? As you know, Burkina Faso ranks among the top gold-producing countries in Africa. Gold is its leading export, 37% of all exports as of 2020. Gold mining is also the country's main source of employment. Of all the gold produced in Burkina Faso, half comes from artisanal mining, involving nearly 1 million people. Yet, for decades, Burkina Faso was not in control of this resource. Instead, the Burkinabe gold industry was dominated by Western corporations: London-listed Endeavour Mining, Australia-based West African Resources, Russia's Nordgold, and Canada's Orezone Gold Corporation. Even worse, jihadist groups also took control of several artisanal mines. They used gold to finance acts of terror in Burkina Faso. As Captain Traoré warned in 2024, a lot of gold leaves Burkina Faso fraudulently, and this gold is used to fuel terrorism. The violence has been devastating. In 2022 alone, 4 industrial mines were forced to close. Nearly 700 artisanal mining sites were abandoned, and the country's total gold output fell sharply. Gold production in recent times has faced serious challenges. As a result, Captain Traoré decided to take bold steps to deal with 2 problems. First, in 2024, he banned the export of gold. Then, on Wednesday, The 30th of July, 2025, Burkina Faso's newly appointed Minister of Mines, Yacouba Zabré, announced that the country had suspended exports of gold and other precious metals from artisanal mining. The suspension took effect immediately. It followed the government's plan to clean up the sector and its desire to better organize the marketing of gold and other precious resources. The minister did not say how long the suspension would last, but he added, groups with gold ready for export could reach out to the National Society for Precious Commodities, SONAP, for compensation. This decision by the military government of Burkina Faso follows similar moves by other African nations, such as Zimbabwe and Namibia, which have banned the export of unprocessed minerals, including lithium. By suspending gold exports, Traore aimed to cut off a major source of funding for terrorists. At the same time, he wanted to address long-standing challenges in the mining sector and enhance its contribution to the country's economic development. Second, in the 1st of September, 2025, Traore launched the construction of Burkina Faso's first gold refinery. Ismail Sibi, CEO of the co-managing company Morena Gold, noted that the refinery was designed with a daily capacity of around 400 kilograms of gold. This underscored the nation's commitment to optimizing its most valuable resource. According to Sibi, the first 22-karat gold bars would leave the refinery within 10 months. The project would also create 1,000 direct jobs and up to 50,000 indirect jobs. At the launch, Captain Traore declared, "There is no longer any question of us taking our gold abroad for refining. We will refine it here, on our own land, because we must know the true content of the raw gold that comes out. This is very important." The refinery, developed in partnership with Morena Gold, a local company, will also house a jewelry store and the future headquarters of the Société Nationale des Substances Précieuses, which oversees the project on behalf of the state. Following the launch, the military government reshuffled leadership. In the 2nd of September, 2025, Simon Pierre Boussim, the former Minister of Mines, was replaced with Yacouba Zabré. Wednesday, the 3rd of September, 2025, the government introduced a new gold sales royalty for gold prices above $1,700 per ounce. A progressive royalty would now apply, replacing the previous flat 5% rate for gold sold between $1,300 and $1,700 per ounce. Finally, to wrest full control of its own destiny, Burkina Faso struck back. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young officer who rose to the presidency, launched one of the largest and most decisive military offensives in the nation's modern history. The target: gold mines long seized by terrorists, gold that had fueled death, chaos, and lawlessness. At the heart of this mission lay the Djibo Greenstone Belt, a geological wonder in northern Burkina Faso. This land is no ordinary terrain. Its ancient rock formations are rich in gold, stretching for miles beneath the Earth's surface. For years, this wealth attracted miners, investors, and speculators, but it also attracted warlords and extremists who saw in the shining metal a permanent source of funding for terror. Militants carved the mines into their private kingdoms. They extorted local workers. They smuggled gold across borders. They traded it for weapons and explosives. Every ounce of gold stolen became a bullet, a landmine, or a kidnapping ransom. The state was deprived of vital revenue. The land was scarred by uncontrolled mining, rivers polluted by mercury, forests stripped bare. For ordinary people, life became unbearable. Villagers were harassed, farmers abandoned their fields, children dropped out of schools, clinics were deserted, and the Greenstone Belt, once a promise of prosperity, turned into a stronghold of fear. But under Traoré's command, the tide began to shift. The young captain, hardened by years of military service, refused to accept a future where terrorists dictated the fate of his people. He promised not only to defend sovereignty but to reclaim what was stolen. The Burkinabe army drew up its plan. Sweeping operations were prepared. Battalions were mobilized. Air fleets were ready. For weeks, intelligence officers mapped enemy camps, marked hidden supply routes, and identified stockpiles of explosives. When the order came, it was not a reckless charge. It was a calculated strike. The offensive began with aerial dominance. Fighter aircraft and attack helicopters soared over the Djibo Greenstone Belt. Drones hovered silently, feeding real-time images to command centers. With precision, airstrikes shattered key fortifications, destroyed ammunition caches, and cut off escape corridors. The skies belonged to Burkina Faso. On the ground, Battalions 4, 7, and 1 advanced. These were not scattered units. They moved with discipline, formation, and coordination. Every squad had its sector. Every commander knew the mission. They converged on Commune 17, once the nerve center of terrorist activity. The terrain was unforgiving hills, dry riverbeds, dense thickets that hid ambush points. But the soldiers pressed forward, step by step. Commando units swept perimeters, disarmed improvised explosive devices, and cleared villages one by one. Every advance was deliberate, every movement measured. Then the silence broke. Gunfire erupted. The hills echoed with explosions. Columns of smoke rose from destroyed bunkers. The ground trembled with the weight of battle. Soldiers faced wave after wave of resistance, yet they stood firm. In trenches, behind rocks, in the streets of abandoned villages, Burkinabe troops fought with courage and endurance. Moments of life and death stretched endlessly, but they held their ground. What tilted the scales was strategy. The army did not rush blindly. It coordinated across land and air. Drones, circling above, became the eyes of the nation. They tracked movements. They exposed ambushes. They guided artillery fire with pinpoint precision. And when needed, they unleashed their own payloads, striking deep into enemy lines. This marriage of technology and bravery broke the back of the insurgents. Positions they thought impregnable collapsed in hours. Commanders they believed untouchable were eliminated in minutes. The terrorists had expected a war of attrition. Instead, they were met with an army reborn, an army that overwhelmed them in days. The liberation of the Djibo Greenstone Belt was not just a tactical success. It was a turning point in the very identity of Burkina Faso. For more than 4 years since 2019, terrorists had ruled this region. The state had vanished. The flag had disappeared. Roads lay empty. Schools fell silent. Clinics closed. And entire villages were forced to live under the shadow of terror. Now, that nightmare was ending. For the first time in years, the national flag was raised again over Commune 17. For the first time, villagers could breathe without fear of extortion or abduction. For the first time, gold once stolen was back under the authority of the state. The reconquest was also symbolic. It showed the world that Burkina Faso would not be another failed state. It would not accept permanent occupation by armed groups. It would fight, reclaim, and rebuild. But the story does not stop at the battlefield. The Djibo Greenstone Belt is not only a front line of war, it is a foundation for the future. By regaining this territory, Burkina Faso has unlocked immense economic potential. Gold is more than a mineral here. It is the backbone of national growth. With control restored, the government is ensuring that this wealth is not exported in raw form for pennies on the dollar. Instead, gold will be refined at home, in Burkina Faso's own refinery. This means value addition, jobs, and revenue staying inside national borders. The impact will be transformative. Billions in revenue will flow into state coffers. Gross domestic product will rise. Public budgets for schools, hospitals, and infrastructure will expand. Tens of thousands of jobs will be created. Miners, engineers, technicians, truck drivers, logistics staff. And the ripple effect will be felt everywhere. Better wages will lift families. Markets will flourish. Farmers will bring goods to towns on new highways built with mining revenue. Clinics will have medicine. Children will sit in classrooms powered by electricity. Villages will have clean water. Communities will feel the dignity of a state that protects and invests in them. For President Traore, this operation is proof of his doctrine. From the moment he took power, he promised to rebuild the military, to modernize, to discipline, to reforge its identity. He invested in training. He secured new defense technologies. He emphasized pride, unity, and national sovereignty. The reconquest of Djibo shows the results. But Traore also knows the challenges ahead. The West will not watch silently. Foreign companies, who once profited from Africa's unguarded resources, are uneasy. Terrorist groups will try to regroup. But this time, Burkina Faso is not isolated. It stands with allies Mali, Niger, Guinea, Chad nations, determined to reclaim their resources and defend their sovereignty. This is why Djibo is more than a victory. It is a warning, a message, and a beginning. It warns enemies, both foreign and domestic, that Burkina Faso will not bow. It tells citizens that their sacrifices are not in vain, and it signals the birth of a new era where natural wealth becomes a blessing, not a curse. Burkina Faso has entered history's turning point, a chapter where its mines are no longer weapons of terror, but engines of prosperity, where its army is no longer under-equipped, but modern and proud, where its people, long denied, now see hope in their own land. The reconquest of Djibo is not just a battle won, it is a nation reborn, and it marks the dawn of a future where sovereignty is defended, dignity is restored, and prosperity is shared. Burkina Faso is no longer a victim. It is a symbol, a rising force. And under Ibrahim Traoré, it has shown the world that even the smallest nations can reclaim their destiny if they have the will to fight, the courage to endure, and the vision to build.